Zero stories on AP regarding the stabbing murder of this Ukrainian refugee. Zero stories on AP, zero stories on PBS, zero stories on New York Times, zero stories on NPR, zero stories on Wall Street Journal, zero stories on BBC, one story on CNN, and they did it today because you know why? They were forced to, pretty much. The outrage was so loud and so crazy, they put one story. They put 20 stories out a day if Donald Trump, pees in the bathroom.
Police identified 35-year-old DeCarlos Brown as that suspect. He has a lengthy criminal history, are we shocked? Including 14 arrests on charges like armed robbery, assault, and making threats. The city's Democratic mayor is facing backlash for thanking media partners. We're supposed to act independently. Well, they're not journalists, whoever those partners are. And then she thanked community members who have, quote unquote, chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for Irina's family.
Guys, on August 22nd, 2025, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee was stabbed to death on Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte, North Carolina. The incident occurred at the East-West Boulevard light rail station. This case sparked discussion on racial biases and what left-wing media sources are actually reporting and what they're not reporting. Let's get into it.
A lunatic just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country.
President Trump on that brutal killing in Charlotte, North Carolina, that is igniting outrage. Of course, that was just a short time ago from his remarks at the Religious Liberty event. The silence from the liberal media and Democrats is actually heartbreaking. Don't they care that their soft on crime policies are getting people killed? Now, I want to warn you as I narrate this, it's disturbing. We'll stop at the point right before the murder, but you'll know what's happening. Even the president described this. The shocking surveillance video shows a Ukrainian refugee brutally stabbed to death on a city train last month. There's no way she sees this coming. You see the people on the other side of the train are focused on their phones or looking away. He takes that moment and he kills her. It happened just before 10 p.m. on Friday, August 22nd. 23-year-old Irina Zarutsky got on that train, and minutes later, an alleged homeless ex-convict with more than a dozen arrests stabbed her.
Guys, it's really sad that a Ukrainian refugee has come here to the United States to be in a safer place than she would have been in her homeland at the moment, being that the Ukraine is actually, a war-torn country at the moment. And to have someone come here to our United States and be in a supposed safe place here and have some psycho lunatic actually get up on the light rail and stab her to death while people are just hanging out on their actual phones is really it's ridiculous, actually, when you think about it. But the craziest part about this story is, first off, a life was lost here, which is always horrible. And you look at this stuff, and there's a lot of things that we're going to go over in this video. One thing we're going to touch on is the liberal side of things not covering this story because of the laws and the policies that stations like CNN, MSNBC, and ABC actually cover and they support, as opposed to when stuff like this happens, they don't want to touch it. We're going to touch on that, and we're also going to touch on the idea of if this would have been reversed and you would have had, let's say, a white man get on a train and stab a black woman to death. Would the outrage have been different? And we're also going to look at the mayor's comments here in actual Charlotte. The irony, the weirdness of it all for them to try to silence these types of things in these Democrat-led cities.
It happened so fast that other passengers really didn't notice until it was too late. And the suspect then walks to the other end of the car, blood dripping both from the knife in his hand and his bloody footprints, and kind of stands and he waits to see if he can get off that train. And then he starts walking around the other members of the people inside that locked car. He's near them. Lord only knows what he could have done. Finally, he got off at the next stop. Police identified 35-year-old DeCarlos Brown as that suspect. He has a lengthy criminal history. Are we shocked?
Unbelievable.
Including 14 arrests on charges like armed robbery, assault, and making threats. The Democratic mayor is facing backlash for thanking media partners.
Unbelievable.
We're supposed to act independently. Well, they're not journalists, whoever those partners are. And then she thanks community members who have, quote unquote, chosen not to repost or share the footage out of respect for Irina's family. Cheryl, this is more than heartbreaking. It's disgusting. And we want more of that footage. We don't own it. But as you can tell, I've watched it all. It's about 8 minutes long. And what's in that video, we do need to see. We do need to know.
I've watched the full video as well. It is disturbing. And that suspect arrested 14 times, horrific. But there's more to this story that keeps happening. First off, the mayor saying that we need more police. You don't need more police. You need to keep a person in jail that was arrested 14 times. Why was this person free? Number one, that's a failure, I think, on the mayor herself.
Yeah, guys, that is one of the things that Trump ran on this past election, being harder on crime. And, you know, so these types of things don't happen. It's so that the people here in America actually feel safe when they're, you know, basically traveling. The girl never even saw what happened. She never saw, in the video, you know, she's sitting there minding her business. There's no interaction between her and the guy that actually deleted her. You know, he just gets up and starts stabbing her to death while everybody is on their phone and nobody's even looking. And, you know, and the only reason people really found out about it is because he started noticing he had blood on his shirt. I mean, how far, what does that say about our society? And also on that reason, some people might not want to get involved with this because they saw what happened with Daniel Penny when there was another, you know, man with mental health problems that started threatening people in that situation. And Daniel Penny, luckily, Daniel Penny was there to handle that situation. But it really makes you think, what are we doing as a society to where you're on your phone and you're in your little world and you don't notice somebody being stabbed to death 1 seat over on a light rail? Unbelievable. Let's get back to it.
The other thing, too, is I found GoFundMes were actually created for the suspect to raise money for him. And then get this, on a couple of the pages, they've been pulled down, thank God. One of the fundraisers. While what happened was a tragedy, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that DeCarlos Brown Jr. was failed categorically by the judicial system and the mental health services. He's not entirely to blame. Another said, let's fight against the racism and bias against our people in the fundraiser for this suspect. It just shows the worst of humanity, this whole story, and the disregard for her family.
Jeremy, that is so patently offensive. Our people? You mean fellow killers? I mean, are they invoking race into this whole thing? Yeah. He got up, took something out of his pocket, and killed somebody on camera. Probably didn't realize it was all caught on camera.
Yeah, I mean, it is so disturbing, the footage. And what's really disturbing to me is you have a leader of a major city, Charlotte, which I spent a lot of time in Charlotte. I have a lot of friends that live there with young kids. A lot of people living in fear now, wondering, can I get on the train safely? And her knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, thank you for just not spreading this video any farther. We don't want anybody else to see this. Whereas when you see all sorts of, usually when you have situations involving police, shooting someone unarmed, well, there's, release the video as far and wide as it can go, make sure we send this video out and everyone can see, and there's all this outrage. But here we see this, especially on the legacy media's part, we don't really want to talk about this.
Why? Why do you think that is? It doesn't
fit their predetermined narrative. They have a predetermined narrative about what they want to say about the United States, and they don't want, watch this, Republicans to get a win out of this. So they think politics. They don't want, they know President Trump cracking down on crime. They don't want anything to fuel what all of us know to be true about crime. And to me, it's sad that you have people, you could watch a video that gruesome, and your reaction is, oh, we don't want the Republicans to get a win. I mean, it's disturbing and very frustrating for all.
When you have situations like Donald Trump wanting to put the National Guard into other cities, which hypothetically he can't do that anyways, I think there's another video I talk about that you guys can check out. It was the one previous to this one, so it'll pop up on the end screen at the end here. And what I think he's actually doing with that, I think, is a chess move. But anyways, back to this topic. Looking at this and having the mayor of Charlotte actually come out and say, guys, don't spread this story around. Don't do that. It's all because they're all in cahoots with one another. And it reflects badly on sanctuary cities when you have, people walking into light rails, getting on that train, and stabbing someone to death. That was a Ukraine refugee. I mean, what is this world coming to when somebody who's been arrested 14 times is able to go in and out of prison, you know, like it's a Walmart? You know, that guy should have been locked up by now, man. And that girl lost her life because of bad Democrat policies when it comes to crime. They keep letting everyone out of jail. There's been so many people that have died in these soft on crime cities. And it's really heartbreaking to watch that video. I didn't want to play the whole video on this clip because I didn't want to have to face demonetization, stuff like that, which I know, which is understandable. But you guys can see that on different corners of the internet. But I wanted to just comment on this and just say, you know, in North Carolina is a red state, but we have these pockets where there's like a major city or so, and they're blue. The little section's blue, and it ruins it for the rest of us out here. So, but I will say too, having a mayor come out and say that, and then having, you know, CNN, MSNBC just not wanting to cover it because it would reflect badly on them and supposedly give Republicans a win. You know, everything's not political, but in this situation, you know, Democrats are pro-crime, man. They're for the freaking criminal. They want to keep Kimar Abrego Garcia here in the United States. They want to keep an MS-13 member who dilly-dallied with little kids in the United States. They want to keep a domestic violence person who committed domestic violence in Kimar Abrego Garcia here in America. They want to keep someone who is a human trafficker here in America. They let this guy in Charlotte out of jail 14 times. What? They won't talk about the victim because it reflects poorly on what they're fighting for. And it doesn't fit their narrative. It's infuriating, really, guys.
Seen liberals, though, ask for more of it. Look at Daniel Penny. He was locked in a subway car with a man who was losing his mind and threatening people around, and he moved to protect the citizens around him. And everybody wanted more video of that. Well, did he do it for the right reasons, and so on and so forth? I want to get to this real quickly. Mainstream media, almost no coverage of this stabbing. Stories on the deadly North Carolina stabbing, zero from the Associated Press, PBS, New York Times, National Public Radio, Wall Street Journal, BBC, Washington Post, Reuters, MSNBC, only one from CNN, and it's from today. And the suppression on this, not just the video, Kennedy, drove...
Guys, I want you to look at this right here. Zero stories on AP regarding the stabbing murder of this Ukrainian refugee. Zero stories on AP, zero stories on PBS, zero stories on New York Times, zero stories on NPR, zero stories on Wall Street Journal, zero stories on BBC, one story on CNN, and they did it today, later today, because you know why? They were forced to, pretty much. The outrage was so loud and so crazy, they put one story. They put 20 stories out a day if Donald Trump, you know, pees in the bathroom and, you know, whatever. But they put one story out of this horrible situation. Zero stories on Washington Post, zero stories on Reuters, zero stories on MSDNC. Guys, it does not fit their narrative. They do not want anything to do with this. It is absolutely sad. Absolutely sad. And it's bias. They are purposely not reporting the news. That's why CNN and, you know, MSNBC's got to change their freaking name because no one likes them. It's unbelievable.
Move the suppression on the story itself because it didn't go viral and not as many people knew that it had happened. And that's why we are this far beyond August 22nd and just now talking about this.
Yeah, and it's one of those videos that is so shocking. It's galvanizing to people because they want to feel safe in their cities. It's also tragic for this young woman who fled Ukraine for a better life, got to the United States, and, you know, probably felt like I'm safe. I'm somewhere where I feel I am protected and can thrive and flourish. He would be impulsively violent. And it is a failure of the system, not for him, but for her, that she lost her life.
Absolutely.
And there was nothing that she could do in the moment because The strike was so violent and deadly. There was no way she could have saved her own life.
Well, and he's 34 years old. So all that past is not like under seal or anything. It's all gettable. And if people are doing their jobs, they're looking at all that reports, especially after that many arrests. I want to take a look at this. It's a local Charlotte reporter on city council cake break. Can we look at this? Local Charlotte reporter posts this. The Charlotte City Council took a cake break before they began discussing that fatal stabbing.
Unbelievable, man.
What in the actual is happening right now?
I don't know whether to be more enraged at the city council, the Democratic politicians, or the media.
You know, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, but every time you see that mugshot, there's always, normally, unless it's property theft, something like that, but that's still a victim. But every time you see a mugshot, you know, I normally see in my mind a picture of a victim. Because there's somebody that person did that to. So there's 14 occasions that this person, this man actually committed these crimes. There was, you know, the 14 arrests. So you could have corrected it on the first one. But you guys just let him go out there with these soft on crime policies, and he just keeps committing it over and over and over and over. It's really depressing to actually see this stuff happen. And the idea that, you know, the left won't even cover this story because it doesn't fit their narrative is very telling. You know, it's like the news isn't even the news anymore on CNN and MSDNC and the BBC and all that stuff. I mean, this lady was murdered. And if you guys see that video, it is disturbing, man. It's gruesome. It's horrible. Guys, you know, my thoughts and prayers goes out to her family. I will say one more thing before I jump off this video. And that one thing would be a lot of these GoFundMes that people set up. Sometimes there are trolls that do this type of stuff. But the idea that somebody could be so insensitive to a situation where a woman was murdered in cold blood, and you want to set up a GoFundMe because it was a white person is very sad. Hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care. And you guys be aware of your surroundings because God knows nobody's looking around to see if everybody's okay except Daniel Penny, man. And there ain't a Daniel Penny on every train. You guys be careful.